Yo, what's good everyone? Today I'm going to be taking a first look here at this Week 3 NFL DraftKings main slate. Let's dive right into it. And like we always do here in these videos, I'm going to go position by position, highlighting the plays that are sticking out to me here early in the week, and then we'll wrap up this video by putting together a first look cash lineup and a first look tournament lineup. But before we dive into the positions here, everyone, if you could like this video and subscribe to the channel, I would greatly appreciate that. It's completely free to do, and every like, sub, and comment that you guys leave here on this channel truly does help me out. And I also want to mention that I run a free Discord channel as well with over 800 people in there talking multiple different sports for DFS and sports betting. If you want to join that, there's a link to do so in the description below, as well as in the pinned comment below. With that being said, let's go ahead and dive into the Week 3 plays here. We're going to kick it off at the quarterback position. We got two of the elite quarterbacks on this slate when it comes to DFS, and Jaden Daniels and Jalen Hurts, those guys who bring that elite rushing upside that we love. I don't necessarily love the matchup here for Philadelphia, even though they are at home, and Jalen Hurts has kind of been so-so through 2 weeks. 24 DraftKings points, obviously don't mind that. Last week against Kansas City, 11 DraftKings point, don't necessarily love that. Again, we know the upside that he brings, so I don't mind that play. But honestly, everyone, I'm looking at the top here, 6K and above, and I'm not in love with these plays. It's really this 5K range that kind of sticks out to me. And I got 4 quarterbacks in this range that I quite like. First being Caleb Williams here. Now, he hasn't been fantastic through 2 weeks in terms of true football play, but in terms of DFS and fantasy scoring, 24.2 and 18 DraftKings points in a matchup at home against a pretty weak Dallas Cowboys defense. We saw what Russell Wilson did to them in Week 2. I quite like this play, both from a cash game and tournament perspective. I also quite like this play here at home for Drake May going up against the Steelers. He's someone who brings that sneaky rushing upside. You don't always hear that about Drake May, but he did score a rushing touchdown in this game against Miami in Week 2, and just seems to be getting better with each and every game. So I like him at that price of $5,300. One guy that I really like on the tournament side of things here is going to be Sam Darnold. Has not been great with his new team, but seemed to figure it out a little bit more last week on the road against Pittsburgh. We saw Cooper Kupp get 9 targets in that game. Jackson Smith and Jigba back-to-back games with double-digit targets. So considering the price there at $5,100 at home in a good matchup against New Orleans, I quite like that from a tournament perspective, and maybe we'll build a lineup around that for a tournament at the end of this video here. And then the last quarterback that I want to highlight, Mac Jones, back at home here, played really well in his debut for the 49ers, seemingly very comfortable in this win here against the New Orleans Saints, threw the ball 39 times, had 3 passing touchdowns. I don't love the 2 fumbles, but I can overlook that for a guy priced at $5,000 in a good matchup at home against Arizona. So like I said, not really in love with the high-priced quarterbacks here with this early look, but quite like this 5K range. Next, we got the running backs here, and we got Tier 1 guys of Saquon Barkley, Bijan Robinson, and Christian McCaffrey. And maybe I could probably even throw in Jonathan Taylor into that mix, but I put him in Tier 2 there with Bucky Irving. And if I had to pick one between these 3, I'm going to go with Bijan Robinson. This is a smash matchup against the Carolina Panthers, who should be one of the worst teams and one of the worst defenses in the NFL this year. This guy is so elite with the football in his hands, so shifty, can turn on a dime, can catch the ball. He has everything you're looking for when it comes to a running back, especially when playing on DraftKings. Now, I do like CMC in that matchup at home against Arizona, played fine with Mac Jones. And Saquon Barkley absolutely decimated this defense for the LA Rams last year, so I don't mind him either. But if I had to just pick one of those guys, and let's call it the Tier 1 plays for running backs, I am going to go with Bijan there. And then getting into these Tier 2 running backs, if you will, Jonathan Taylor and Bucky Irving, I think they're going to both be in play here for Week 3. Jonathan Taylor looked really good in Week 2 against a stout Denver defense, put up 32.5 DraftKings points, ran the ball 25 times, 165 rushing yards. He doesn't get Bijan and CMC type targets, but he is very capable of catching the ball as well. And I don't mind that price there at $7,200, even though it's a solid price increase from last week. And then same thing here with Bucky Irving. deserving. He's really kind of a do-it-all running back, can run the ball effectively, very effective catching the ball too, in a solid matchup at home there against the Jets. So they're kind of my tier 2 running backs, like I said. And then outside of that, I'm kind of looking in this low 6K range, mid 5K range for the last 2 running backs that I wanted to discuss. We got Javonte Williams here. He looks refreshed, rejuvenated, playing with this new team in the Dallas Cowboys. You can see there, almost ran for 100 rushing yards last week against the New York Giants. Put up 20 plus DraftKings points in 2 games so far this year, and he's been involved in the passing game as well, and I really like that, especially considering this matchup against Chicago, who's kind of a run funnel defense, if you will. And then the last running back that I wanted to discuss here this week is Jaylen Warren. Now, his rushing attempts can be a little hard to judge week in and week out. I hope we get some more consistency there going forward, but he is another guy who's very explosive with the ball in his hands, and I love the pass catching upside that he brings. So $5,500, it stuck out to me. I definitely prefer Javonte Williams and the upper 7K running backs that I discussed earlier, but if we're looking to save a little money at this position, again, Warren was kind of a guy that stuck out to me in this price range. Next, we got the wide receivers here, and I've broken the top plays into 3 different tiers this week, and then I actually want to name drop 7 different wide receivers in the 5.5K range and below. I will name drop them. We're not going to spend minutes going over each individual play, but there's quite a bit of value sticking out at the wide receiver position early in the week. With all that said, tier 1 plays in my opinion are Puka Nacua, CeeDee Lamb, and Jamar Chase. Puka Nacua has been fantastic through 2 weeks. A tougher matchup on the road here against the Eagles for sure, but a guy who should see close to 10 targets in this game. Another guy who should see close to 10 targets, CeeDee Lamb and Jamar Chase. We got Jamar Chase going on the road with a backup quarterback and Jake Browning, so I'm a little cognizant of that, but if you watch the game here this last week against Jacksonville, Browning was looking to throw to Chase as much as possible, so I'm not overly concerned there. We got CeeDee Lamb taking on the Chicago Bears, another guy who's seen double-digit targets through 2 weeks, has yet to find the end zone, but he does have 100-plus receiving yards in both games as well. Now, I didn't put Justin Jefferson in the tier 1 play because, well, J.J. McCarthy's been iffy through 2 weeks, and actually he's not going to play here in week 3. He does have a sprained ankle after that Sunday night game, and we're going to be getting Carson Wentz starting for the Minnesota Vikings, so I need to look further into that before I put J.J. in the tier 1 plays, but let's lead off here with the tier 2 plays. In my opinion, that is going to be Jettas here to A.J. Brown. Where is A.J. Brown? Right here. Now, A.J. Brown, 4.8 DraftKings points, averaging that through 2 weeks. Not great, but he's one of those guys who can definitely break a slate. If I had to just pick a couple of wide receivers in this tier 2 range, for me it's going to be Nico Collins taking on the Jacksonville Jaguars. We're going to watch him play here on Monday night against the Buccaneers. So we got a small sample size, week 1, just 5.5 DraftKings points. Honestly, I'm not too concerned about that. Nico should be in a good spot there against Jacksonville. And then I like Jackson Smith and Jigba here against New Orleans at home. As I mentioned earlier, double-digit targets through 2 games. He had 9 targets last week. I'm rounding up there. But he's a clear-cut number 1 wide receiver in this offense. And then Cooper Kupp saw 9 targets last week as well, too. So we'll build a tournament lineup at the end of this video around Seattle. And then getting into these tier 3 wide receiver plays, I got Egbuka all the way down to DK Metcalf, and then we'll get into those 7 wide receivers below that stuck out to me. Now, in this range here, I like Deebo Samuel, who has been fantastic with his new team here through 2 weeks. 10 and 8 targets, 22.5 and 17.5 DraftKings points. You know, you'd like to see a few more rushing attempts, but they're probably just easing him into this new offense. Either way, at $6,100, he definitely stuck out to me. McMillan, the rookie wide receiver for Carolina, even though this team is brutal, this guy's getting targets thrown his way, making some beautiful catches with Bryce Young as well. So at $5,900, I don't mind that against Atlanta, especially considering that we saw AJ Terrell go down in that game on Sunday night against Minnesota. Sounds like he's going to be battling a hamstring injury. If he misses this game, that should be a boost to McMillan. And then Terry McLaurin, also want to highlight him. He has not put up the numbers that Deebo's put up through 2 weeks, but kind of makes him a sneaky consideration for tournaments this week in a solid matchup against Las Vegas. And then below that, 5.5K range and below, 5.6 if you will, there's 7 different guys that are sticking out to me. And like I said, I'm not going to go through each one of these individually here. I'll just kind of highlight them from a high-level overview. We got Jacoby Myers here for the Raiders. We got Romo Dunze. I do want to click on his game log. 9 and 11 targets, 15.7 and almost 35 DraftKings points, and a good matchup in week 3 at home against Dallas. Really like him in that spot. We also got Jawan Jennings here at $5,000. We got Michael Pittman Jr. at $4,900. Keenan Allen at $4,700. I want to highlight his game log. We're going to watch him play on Monday night too. But 10 targets in his first game, scored a touchdown, almost 20 DraftKings points. Really like that considering the price. And then 2 more guys here. Troy Franklin really came on in this game here against Indianapolis. Connecting with this former college quarterback in Bo Nix, 24 DraftKings points, 9 targets. He looked really good in that game. I was watching it for the most part on Sunday. And then the last guy that I want to highlight here is actually in the 3K range. It's going to be Alec Aomanor. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but I should really learn his name. 7 and 6 targets through 2 games. It looks like Cam Ward likes throwing to this guy, scored a touchdown last week, and if he's going to be getting close to 6-7 targets per game at this price here in the mid 3K range, I'll absolutely take advantage of that. Next, we got the tight ends, and the elite tight end plays are still very affordable here. McBride and Bowers at or below $6,000. And as long as they float in that range, they're going to be in tournament consideration for me, maybe even cash game consideration. I usually don't spend up at this position because there's usually value in the 3K range that we can go to. But again, very affordable here for being the elite tight end plays. Tucker Kraft, 2 touchdowns through 2 games, absolutely came on in that Thursday night game against Washington. I think this guy's going to be a problem for the league. Speaking of tight ends who are going to be a problem, Tyler Warren. This dude is so legit. You can see there 15 and 12 DraftKings points through 2 games. When the ball's in his hands, he makes plays, and Daniel Jones is looking for him frequently, so I like him at $4,400. And then I think Zach Ertz and Ferguson are in play here in the low 4K range as well. Been very productive through 2 weeks. I did not talk about Juwan Johnson in my first look video last week, and I absolutely should have. He did make my final cash plays and final tournament plays videos, which I posted on Friday, which leads me to say this: if you're watching my first look videos, but you're not watching my final cash plays and tournament videos that I post on Friday, you are missing out on a lot, and they're very short and sweet videos as well, usually 10 minutes or less, so make sure you tune into those. But Juwan Johnson's been fantastic through 2 weeks, kind of a safety valve for Spencer Rattler, 12 and 9 targets, hitting 15 DraftKings points in both. Now a tough matchup on the road here this week in Seattle, but still very affordable there at $3,900. And then I also want to highlight Pitts here as well. He ran a route on 100% of Michael Penix dropbacks on Sunday night. I think that's worth mentioning for sure. Hasn't been fantastic, but 5 and 8 targets for a guy priced in the 3K range, I definitely don't mind that. And then I want to highlight a few more guys here creeping down in the lower 3K range. You got Fannin Jr. here for the Cleveland Browns. 5 targets last week, caught every single ball thrown his way. 10 DraftKings points. He's going to be in play going forward. And then a handful of guys here in the lower 3K range, even the 2K range. We got Sanders here for the Carolina Panthers. We got Noah Fant for Cincinnati. Again, we need to keep an eye on the quarterback situation there for Cincy, but I think he should be fine, especially for tournaments. Michael Mayer here. I don't think Brock Bowers is going to be limited going forward. We'll see tonight on Monday night. But assuming that Bowers is limited, hypothetically speaking, Mayer would come into play at $3,000. And then Tongs here. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but he did see 5 targets in this game against New Orleans. At $2,900, I definitely don't mind that. I got to go look at his snap count still, but again, kind of stuck out to me for a first look early in the week. And then we got the defenses here. We'll keep this short and sweet. Seattle's got a good defensive unit back at home here this week, taking on New Orleans. I really like that matchup if I'm looking to spend up. I think the Texans are going to be in play here in the 2K range, taking on Jacksonville. I think DraftKings is kind of pricing this like it's a scary matchup, but I'm not overly concerned about it. We also got the Patriots here back at home taking on the Steelers. I think that's a solid spot for them. And then we got the Bengals taking on Minnesota. Now, we'll need to see what happens here in Minnesota. J.J. McCarthy's not going to be playing this week. I still would have liked the Bengals even if he was playing, but we got Carson Wentz starting for the Vikings, so I think we're going to be able to fire up the Bengals here at $2,400. Kind of a punt play at this price, but could be a solid matchup for them as well. All right, everyone, now let's put together a first look cash lineup here. Before we do this, actually, if you could like this video and subscribe to the channel, I would greatly appreciate that. Again, completely free to do. Let's dive into the quarterbacks here. I'm going to save some money right off the bat. Let's put in our boy Mac Jones once again. Played him in my cash lineup last week, felt good about it. We're going to go back to the well. Even though he's $1,000 more expensive, I still like him at that price in that matchup. Let's go to the wide receivers here. No, let's go to the running backs here. We're going to go Bijan. Absolutely love that play this week. And let's spend up here. Let's go Jonathan Taylor and Bucky Irving. Let's see if we... I think there's a lot of value here to where we can make this work, especially at the wide receiver position. So let's look to spend down here. We're going to go with Deebo Samuel. We're going to go Keenan Allen. And then Romo Dunze. Let's do that. Can we fit that in? What's that? $33.50 left per player. Let's go to defense. Let's put in the Pats. What does that give us? $4,100 for a tight end. I like that. We could go Fergie. We could go Juwan Johnson, Kyle Pitts. Let's go with Juwan Johnson here, $3,900. Now, we got value with the pass catchers, but we're spending up at running backs. Guys who can still get double-digit targets, even though they're very affordable there in the, let's say, mid 4K range to low 6K range. Solid cash lineup. All right, now let's build a tournament lineup here, and I said we're going to do a little Seattle stack. So let's go with Sam Darnold. We're going to stack him up with both of his top two pass catchers here in Jackson Smith and Jigba and Cooper Kupp. So mid 6K range here, and then Kupp, I believe, is low 5K range. Yeah, 5,000 exactly. And let's run it back with Juwan Johnson. I know we just put him in the cash lineup there, but he's very affordable. Been super good through 2 weeks. Yeah, let's start there. And then let's go to the running backs. And let's spend up. Let's spend up majorly. Let's go with Bijan and Saquon. All right, now we're going to have to save a little bit of money here. $4,600 left over. I kind of like the Troy Franklin play here. I loved what I saw from him in week 2. He's $4,100. Nope, he's $4,000. And then defense. I know I just put in Juwan Johnson there, but let's go with Seattle. Hopefully we see a pick 6 in the game, and then they just play catch-up. Juwan still has 10 targets in that game. So we got $6,200 left over for a flex. We could go with Javonte Williams. I actually quite like that there. And then if we wanted to, we could actually pivot off of Johnson, so we're not playing someone against our defense, and go with someone like, I don't know if I love a double Dallas stack going into Chicago, but we could go with Pitts. I don't know if I love the double Atlanta stack either. It is a good matchup, though, against Carolina. Let's just stick with what I said. We'll go with Juwan Johnson there. Hopefully we see New Orleans throw a pick 6 in that game, and Johnson still gets fed. So for our first look tournament lineup, I certainly don't mind that. We might have to figure out the tight end defense situation, but other than that, I actually quite like it. All right, everyone, that is going to wrap up this video here for today. As always, thank y'all for taking the time out of your day to watch the content here on this channel. If you could like this video and subscribe to the channel, I would greatly appreciate that.